Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 Acura MDX, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Wiring Harness. But before we get into that, let's take a minute, check it out, and make sure it's going to work for you. So with the MDX, they're pretty capable SUVs and people use them to do a lot of different things, which does include pulling some trailers around. And if that's what you plan on doing, you're going to need a way to power up the lights on that trailer. That way you're not only safe, but it's a legal requirement as well. And so that's where a kit like this is going to come into play. In our case, which I like actually on a vehicle like the MDX, we have it set up to where it's going to be stored inside of the vehicle. That way it's out of sight, out of the elements. You can store it outside next to the hitch too if you want. Entirely up to you, but doing it this way, how it's going to work, you're going to have more than enough length. You're just going to drape this over the threshold and avoid the latch mechanism, of course. You don't want to get hung up in that. And close the hatch on it. And that might seem kind of odd doing that, but it's how it's set up to work. You're not going to hurt the wiring or hurt your vehicle at all. And that's going to give us that four-way flat style of trailer connector there. So this will provide us with the basic signals. We'll have our turn signals, our brake lights, and our running lights. In case if you're ever wanting to pull a trailer that has brakes, this can be a piece of that puzzle to allow you to do that. So if you use this and then the etrailer.com universal brake controller install kit and a brake controller, that'll give you the ability to pull those trailers with the brakes on it. So just wanted to mention that because, like I said, it's a pretty big SUV and might be some of you out there who plan on doing that. But other than that, at the end of the day, there's really not a whole lot to it. Pretty simple concept. As far as the installation goes, it really wasn't too bad, believe it or not. We utilized some factory wiring to get our signals from. Pretty easy to get to. Even the power supply was right here in the back, so we didn't run a wire all the way from the back to the front. And really wasn't too bad. But with that said, I did use a couple of different style of electrical connectors that you will have to get separately. Not really a huge deal though. You can pick them up right here at eTrailer. If this is going to be something you plan on installing yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our Acura, and we're going to be working right inside this area. So first thing that we're going to do is remove any of our floor coverings. So that piece will just snap right out and set it to the side. And then this big threshold piece here, the big piece of plastic that runs along, we can remove that too. And there's no bolts or anything holding this in, just some plastic fasteners. So you can kind of just pry up on it. This connector right here, this is what we were looking for. So this is actually a connector for a factory tow package type setup. But the signals, the turn signals and the brake light and the tail light signals that we're going to need to install this wiring are also sent through here. And that's what we're going to use to pick those signals up. So what I'm going to do, probably just remove some of this tape from here and test everything to figure out what wires do what. So how I'm going to test this wiring is pretty simple. I just have a test light here. And just to find our first signal, right now I have the left turn going on our car. And if you kind of run through and touch the back of the pins here, so you can see that light is beeping and flashing in conjunction with our turn signal going. So we know that's a left turn, which happens to be these two brown wires, all right? And so I'll run through the rest of them, find our tail light, our brake light, and our right turn, and we'll get back with you and let you know the color of those wires. We know those two little brown wires going into that terminal was our left turn. Right next to it, you'll have two white wires going into a terminal. That is going to be for our right turn signal. And right next to that, there's going to be a single green wire getting plugged into our connector, and that is going to be our taillight signal. And if you flip the plug over, Right there, we're going to have a single gray wire. That's what we're going to use for our brake lights. Grab your trailer wiring harness. You know, there's several wires coming off of it, and we'll go through what one's going to go where. So to start with, we have a single black wire. This will eventually get hooked up to a fuse holder and go to power. The white one with this ring terminal on it, that'll eventually be a ground wire. There will be a green wire that'll control the right turn signal, and so we will hook that up to the factory white wires. The red wire, that will control our stoplight signal, and so that will get hooked up to the factory gray wire. The yellow wire, that'll control left turn, and so that'll get hooked up to the factory brown wire. And this brown wire will be for our taillight signal, and that'll get hooked up to the factory green. We'll first start with our left turn, which will be the yellow wire from our new taillight wiring. We're going to strip the end of the insulation back, and this is how we're going to make any electrical connection, whether it be a butt connector, ring terminal, spade terminal, what have you. Twist that wire tight, and since the two brown ones are controlling the left turn from this harness, we're going to cut those in half. And probably a good idea too to have your car off. You know, don't have the key in the accessory position right now, that way these won't have power or anything. And I'm going to strip all four of these ends back as well. So once you strip them back on one side, twist those two wires back together nice and tight. On the other side, we'll twist these together as well. We're going to take our yellow wire and tie it into it. So we'll twist it in with it. Then I'm going to take a butt connector, place it over the bare end of the wires there. And crimp that down. Take the other end of the butt connector. Plug the other end of our wires into it. And get it crimped. We're just going to work through each one of our signals one by one, doing it the same way that we just did this one. I was able to get all of our wires hooked up like we talked about, and this is how it turned out. We'll grab our white wire with the ring terminal now and get it grounded. So there happens to be a factory weld nut right here, and I just so happen to have a bolt that you know, matches the threads and it's going to work. So that's what I'm going to use to ground this. The kit does come included with a self-tapping screw though that you could always use and more or less just, you know, secure it to the body right below this area. That would be more than fine as well. But we'll just utilize what's already there and get this secured down. Figure out where we're going to get our 12-volt power supply from now. It sounds like some of these cars are set up differently. Some of the packages will have the vehicle's battery right here in this area. If yours is set up like that, you know, you could go right to the positive post over here. Our car, the battery is in the engine compartment, so you could always run a power wire down from here all the way up to the battery. Do it that way. But we have a fuse block, power distribution here. So I'm going to pop that out. And typically, you're going to have some posts that are not being used. Okay? And a lot of the times, they'll be more than sufficient and be rated to handle more amperage than what we need. So for example, I think I'm going to use this one here. This is for an audio amp, and the factory rates it for 40 amps, and the majority of them are 15 or 20 plus. Our trailer wiring will draw 15 amps at most. So we know the factory wiring, for example, on our 40 amp is sufficient to handle that amount of power. So that's exactly what I'm going to do to avoid having to route a wire all the way to the front. But if yours is fully loaded or something and these are all full, you kind of don't have, you know, your best option then would be to route the power wire to the battery in the engine compartment. I got our power wire sorted. So what I did is took the big bundle of wire that they give you and cut probably like the last 3 foot off of the end of it and stripped the end back. Use a butt connector to pair it up to the black wire coming out of our converter box here. And then I took that end of the wire, lifted up our carpet, just kind of pushed it underneath the carpet where it comes out in here, and was able to reach in there and grab it, the other end of that wire. From there, stripped it back and used a butt connector to pair that up with the included fuse holder. I'm going to make sure the fuse is not installed just yet. Then on the other end, I took our female spade terminal and crimped it on to that part of the fuse holder. What I'll do now is take that and put it right over that stud that we talked about in our fuse block here. At this point, we can now grab the included fuse. We'll place that into the holder. And before we go any further, securing everything and clean it up and put it back together, probably a good idea to test it to make sure it's working properly. So I have a small tester here that'll help us with that. And I like to use one of these as opposed to just plugging into a trailer. I say it because if your trailer has any issues, it might mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. We'll run through all of our signals. We'll try our left turn, our right turn. We'll turn on our taillights and hit our brakes. Now that we verified everything worked, I went ahead and used some electrical tape, taped up our connections, used some of the zip ties just to secure everything, and we can mount up our converter box now. So I cleaned this off with some rubbing alcohol, let it dry, as well as the surface that I'm going to put it to, which will be right in here. And I'll grab the included sticky tape here, put that on, and secure it down here. I put all of our panels and everything back together the opposite way that we removed them. And as far as the 4-way flat wiring goes, this is just going to live inside of the vehicle here in storage. You can route this outside and mount it up next to your hitch if you want. You'll just have to find a grommet or something under the carpet here to pass all this through to get it out there. If you do that, remember to keep in mind to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts when you're routing underneath the vehicle. But we're going to set it up like this, and with that done, we can close up our hatch, and that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Wiring Harness on our 2024 Acura MDX.